Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a look inside a really critical part of U.S. national security. It's one you don't often see much about, the FBI's Counterintelligence Division.
That's right.
We've got some material here covering, where it came from, how it's set up, who's leading it.
hmm
And our mission really is just to get a good handle on why this division is there and sort of how it operates day to day.
Yeah, and it's so relevant, isn't it? I mean, with everything going on globally, understanding how the U.S. protects itself from, say, espionage or foreign operations, well, it's vital.
Exactly. It feels like these things are always in the background, but getting a clearer picture of the teams involved, that's what we're aiming for.
Mm.
Okay, so let's dive in. At its core, what's the Counterintelligence Division actually do?
Well, the fundamental job, the core mission, is protecting the United States.
Yeah.
Specifically, protecting it against foreign intelligence operations and espionage.
Yep.
So think of it as being the shield against attempts to steal secrets or influence things improperly or, harm national interests using hidden methods.
So it's not just about catching spies in trench coats then. It sounds broader. How do they actually go about doing that?
Right. It's much broader. Investigations are a big part, obviously, but crucially, it involves a lot of collaboration, working with local law enforcement, working with the rest of the U.S. intelligence community.
Ah, okay.
That partnership is essential because these threats, they're complex. They cross lines, jurisdictions, you name it.
Right.
And, something really interesting is how much their resources, funding, and people jumped up after 9/11.
Right.
That wasn't just throwing money at it. It showed a real understanding that strong counterintelligence is, well, fundamental to security now.
Yeah, that definitely puts it into perspective, the seriousness of it, especially post 9/11. Now, this division, it's not exactly new, is it? It's been around a while.
Oh, yeah, a long while. The FBI's counterintelligence work, though it's had different names, goes back to June 1939. So what's that, 85 years?
Wow.
Yeah, 85 years of adapting. And today, the Counterintelligence Division, or CD, is part of the FBI's National Security Branch. Headquarters are, the J. Edgar Hoover building in D.C.
Okay. So for an operation this big and this long running, who's actually in charge? Who's steering the ship at the top?
Good question. So the CD itself is headed up by an assistant director, and that person reports up the chain to the executive assistant director, the EAD, of the FBI National Security Branch, the NSB.
Got it.
And right now, the EAD for the NSB is Larissa L. Knapp. She was appointed back in May 2022 by Director Wray. That direct line shows you how important counterintelligence is seen strategically inside the FBI.
And we even have a list of some recent assistant directors for the CD itself. It's kind of interesting to see the names change over the last, decade or so.
Yeah, looking back gives you a sense of the continuity and change. You had EW Bill Priestap. He was named back in December 2015. Then came John Brown in February 2019, followed by Alan E. Kohler Jr. in April 2020. And the current assistant director is Suzanne Turner, who started in April 2023. So you see a regular succession of leadership bringing in experience for these constantly shifting threats.
Okay, so we've got the basic mission, the history, the leadership. How is this division actually built, internally? How do they organize themselves to tackle such a huge job?
Right, the structure. So the CB is organized into three main branches, and each of those has a deputy assistant director in charge.
Right, branches. Okay.
You got the China branch and the Russia Global branch. Splitting it up like that with specific branches for certain regions really tells you where the FBI sees the major strategic challenges right now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then within those branches, you have various sections, each run by a section chief. That allows them to get even more specialized.
And I bet the names of those sections give you a really good idea of the specific things they're focused on, right?
Exactly. For example, there's the counterespionage section, CE.
Yeah.
Their job is pretty much what it sounds like, stopping foreign spies from getting secrets. That includes looking into media leaks, insider threats, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Then you have the counterproliferation center section, CPC. They're focused on stopping the spread of, weapons of mass destruction or sensitive tech. Very critical area.
Absolutely.
And of course, there's cyber. The Cyber Counterintelligence Coordination Section, C3S. That name alone shows how vital the digital world is in all this now.
No kidding. And it's not just those big headline-grabbing threats either, is it? There are other sections doing important work.
That's right. There's a Counterintelligence Training and Strategy section, for instance, which runs the National Counterintelligence Task Force, and a Global section, which handles CI for Basically everywhere except Russia and China.
Okay, so covering the rest of the world.
Exactly. Plus, you've got units like the Infrastructure Vulnerability and Threat Assessment Center, IVTAC, focused on protecting things like power grids, water systems, critical stuff. And then, reflecting that branch structure we mentioned, you see very specific sections for China. China Operations, or COS3 sometimes. China Counter-Espionage and Technology Transfer, C2T2. There's even a Foreign Investment Unit, FIU, and a China Intelligence section.
Wow, that's a lot of focus on China.
It really underlines the resource allocation, yeah. And similarly, there's a dedicated Russia operations section, too.
Okay. And there's still more, right?
Hmm.
What else is in the mix?
Yep, still going. There's a strategic resources section, a foreign influence task force section, which, seems incredibly relevant today with all the talk about election interference and disinformation.
Absolutely.
A counterintelligence analysis section, a counterintelligence cyberspace operations section, another cyber one, and a clandestine operations section. So you can see it's incredibly specialized and layered.
Truly multifaceted. And you mentioned earlier understanding how it got this way, the history, is really helpful. The name changes over time. That tells a story, too.
It really does. It maps directly onto the changing security landscape and U.S. priorities. It all started, like we said, 1939. J. Edgar Hoover set up the General Intelligence Division. Yeah. Back then, it did foreign CI, but also other intelligence stuff. Then World War II heats up, and in 1941, bang, National Defense Division. Makes sense, right?
Yeah. Clear focus.
Then 43, it becomes the Security Division. Stays that way for about 10 years. Then 1953, Cold War is really ramping up. It shifts to the Domestic Security Division.
Interesting. Domestic focus there.
Yeah. Then in 73, maybe a broader view again, it just becomes the Intelligence Division.
And didn't some responsibilities move around during these periods, too?
Yes, exactly. In 1976, there was a significant move. Domestic terrorism investigations, for example, got shifted over to the Criminal Investigative Division.
Okay.
Then 1993 gets renamed the National Security Division, or NSD. And interestingly, just a year later, 94, domestic terrorism comes back under the NSD. So you see them kind of figuring out the best way to structure these things.
It really shows how the FBI itself was reorganizing based on the threats they saw evolving.
Precisely. And then another huge shift in 1999. The FBI creates a whole separate counterterrorism division. That division takes over all the terrorism cases.
Right.
And then after 9/11, in 2001, the NSD gets its current name, the Counterintelligence Division. And this wasn't just a rename, it was a major reorganization. Other units got spun off: the Security Division, the Cyber Division, the Office of Intelligence, which became the Directorate of Intelligence later.
So 2001 was a really pivotal moment in structuring things the way they are now.
Absolutely. It shows a clear strategic decision to elevate counterintelligence as its own distinct major focus within a dedicated division reacting to that new threat environment.
Fascinating how those names really do track history. Finally, the sources mentioned something about connections to other agencies, like a See Also section.
Yeah, it's brief, but telling. It lists places like the CIA, international counterparts, and what that really highlights is counterintelligence isn't done in isolation. Yeah. It absolutely requires working together, sharing information, coordinating actions across agencies, both here and with allies abroad. It's a team sport, really.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so as we start to wrap this up, what are the main things you think people should take away from this deep dive into the FBI's Counterintelligence Division?
Well, I think the key things are: this is a long-standing, constantly evolving part of the FBI, absolutely crucial for national security. It's built with a clear hierarchy, specialized branches, specialized sections, all designed to tackle a really wide range of threats, from old-school spying to cyber attacks and proliferation.
Right.
And its history, those name changes and restructurings we talked about, they really show how it adapts as the world changes. It's not static.
Yeah, definitely not static. Okay, so here's something maybe for you, the listener, to think about. When you consider this really complex structure, this huge range of responsibilities that the Counterintelligence Division has, what do you think are the biggest challenges they face right now in today's world? And maybe how might those challenges push the division to change again in the future? Something to chew on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.